Today, in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, Organ Donation India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. And today's topic is not only current, but very serious topic. The topic is COVID returns, where we went wrong. But before I will go on the main topic, I would like to inform you that today world is observing World Intellectual Property Day. World Intellectual Property Day is observed annually on 26th April. The event was established by the World Intellectual Property Organization WIPO in 2000 to raise awareness of how patents, copyright, trademarks and designs impact on daily life, and to celebrate creativity and the contribution made by creators and innovators to the development of societies across the globe. 26th April was chosen as the date for World Intellectual Property Day because it coincides with the date on which the convention establishing the World Intellectual Property Organization entered into force in 1970. Media conference with Lal Goel hopes that by observing this day, more and more awareness will be created for protecting patents, copyright, designs, and trademarks. Now coming to our main topic, that is COVID returns, where we went wrong. The COVID-19 pandemic in India is part of the worldwide pandemic of coronavirus disease 2019, caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. The first case of COVID-19 in India, which originated from China, was reported on 30th January 2020. Just a few short weeks ago, Indian government officials were patting themselves on the back. India was the pharmacy of the world, they said, and its cheaply produced vaccines would help end the COVID-19 pandemic globally. The health minister declared that the country had entered the end game of its own battle against the pandemic. In July 2020, India's Ministry of Information and Broadcasting said that the country's case fatality rate was among the lowest in the world at 2.41% and was steadily declining. Even the Reserve Bank of India announced in unusually enthusiastic terms that India had bent like Beckham the COVID-19 curve, and that soon the winter of our discontent will be made glorious summer. COVID-19 case numbers and deaths have begun to spike exponentially in India, easily passing the numbers recorded during last autumn's peak. Hospital beds, oxygen, medicines are running short, and so are vaccine doses. Although the government has halted all vaccine exports, many states have only a few days' supply left in stock. Just now received a message of an advocate from New Delhi, and she sent this message to me. She wrote, I quote, "My friend's mother's condition is getting worsened. She needs to be admitted in ICU and needs immediate critical care. We have tried 7 hospitals, none has admitting her. She is diabetic, high sugar levels, COVID positive, have not eaten anything since past 5 days because of oral infection. Please, need your help, please," unquote. I am receiving such type of messages many times a day. So much helplessness. What went wrong? As is typical in India, official arrogance, hyper-nationalism, populism, and an ample dose of bureaucratic incompetence have combined to create a crisis. The state has left India vulnerable to a second COVID-19 wave, multiple new mutations, and the threat of repeated livelihood-destroying lockdowns. Now, COVID returns. Why we are saying COVID returns? Because yesterday, that is 25th April 2021, India registered 3,54,531 new cases of coronavirus, which has taken the country's cumulative tally past 1,73 lakhs cases. Yesterday, 2,806 lost their life Thus, total death due to corona raised to 1,95,116. According to health officials, India has administered 14 crores 9 lakhs 16,417 vaccine doses across the country as of yesterday, that is 25th April 2021. Although this vaccine which we have administered, the first dose is hardly about 10% of the Indian population, and about 1.5% the second dose, those who are totally vaccinated. And if we will go with this speed, I don't know how many years we will take to complete the complete vaccination of the Indian population. Now, we have today on to discuss this very, very critical, very important topic and very serious topic, COVID returns, where we went wrong. We have medical experts who are in this field for many years, who are managing the shows. So we would like to ask their views about where we went wrong. And I would like to invite my first guest. He is Dr. Dilip Singhvi. Dr. Dilip Singhvi is DM, MRCP, RCP, MD. Dr. Singhvi is the specialist of internal medicine and diabetes. He is the medical director of Apollo Hospital, Muscat. He is the recipient of Man of Excellence Award in 2017 for outstanding achievements in health and social services. He is a recipient of Goel of Rajasthan Award in 2012. He has published several research papers in national and international journals. Welcome, Dr. Dilip Singhvi, on our show. Dr. Dilip Singhvi, as you know, and as I read some of the figures, in India, the condition is horrible right now. And it's increasing day by day. And we don't know, although I am doing this media conference every day, yesterday the topic was oxygen, 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 and the doctors were giving their views, and they are all showing helplessness because oxygen is not available. So when this is the condition, vaccines are not available. Many of the centers in India, they are refusing patients to come even for the second dose. Forget about the first dose, as well as those medicines which are commonly used, like crocin, all those medicines which we have, vitamin C, zinc, they are now not at all available in the chemist shops. When this is the situation, beds are not available, as I already read a message from one of the advocate. Now, when this is the situation, the question is coming, where we went wrong. So my question to you is, Doctor, that where we went wrong. Dr. Dilip Singhvi, please.
Good morning, everybody. And first of all, thank you, Mr. Lal Goel, for this opportunity and touching this important topic and giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts also on this. Now, this is a big burning question which we have raised today, where we went wrong. If you ask me, if you see the data from the West, any country which has opened the economy after the first wave of COVID-19 infection last year in 2020, the first half or probably the first 8 months of 2020 were pretty very bad. Most of the countries were suffering, starting from Europe, US, Asia, major part of Asia. Most of the countries were having surging of cases and a lot of infection. But then in the second half or the later half of 2020, we were able to control, and a major part of Europe started to open up again, the economy. But then what has happened, if you see carefully, any country which had opened its economy completely, whether it was Spain, whether it was Germany, whether it was France, whether it was UK, they had a big surge of COVID-19 infection. The surge came back, which we were labeling as second wave. Now, the same thing has happened in India. And as you rightly said that, in the last month of 2020, that is in December or say end of November, we were very happy. The numbers were coming down, the deaths were going down. And we were thinking we were on the right side of the curve and that we have controlled the disease and the hope on the horizon was too high that we have just conquered the castle. And that actually probably has given a false sense of confidence in our policymakers, our strategists, government of India, whoever you say, whoever is managing the show, that probably we are very near to conquering the castle. And in that process, probably we have opened the economy too fast, too rapidly. In fact, what happens is when, see, major part of last year, there was a lockdown, most of the people were sitting at home and working from home. Most of the things were online. People were delivering, and I should compliment, I should congratulate our citizens, our countrymen, that they cooperated with the government too much. They followed the guidelines. Most of the people were disciplined and they followed the guidelines. They helped the government to bring it down. That's why probably the numbers were down in November and December. But then again, it was a false confidence. Now what has happened? We probably became complacent. The government became complacent. The people became complacent. The scare had lowered down. And when the economy started opening up, they got the opportunity to go out, whether it was work related, whether it was personal entertainment, personal things, socializing, everything started. All restaurants, commercial establishments were open, malls were open, to the extent that cinema halls were open with 50, although there were guidelines, 50% capacity, but you can see guidelines are not followed. Now, most of the places, the COVID guidelines are not maintained. So what has happened? One side, we have an economy which has been opened and people are allowed to go out, whatever the reason is. And on the other side, what has happened? We have got variants of COVID. Now, this variant which has come in, and now India is probably having the third variant, which I don't think anywhere in the world has been reported yet, which is triple mutant. So what has happened? These two factors simultaneously have occurred. One is opening of the economy, movement of the people. Then international travelers started coming in from outside. We got people from the Europe. We got, and if you see early part of November, we started getting the news that the variant is there in India. Probably started with a cluster, and then gradually people started reporting more and more cases, 700,000, and now to the extent that probably major part of India has the variant. Especially, I think Maharashtra, there is a huge number of cases with this variant. The variant which was there in 4 parts of the world: UK, California, Brazil, South Africa. We started there, and then we have progressed it into getting a double mutant. It's a little medical detail which I would like to share, because to understand what went wrong, we need to understand that this variant is 70% more rapidly spreading, and it is 30% more detrimental than the last COVID-19 old virus. So now you can imagine, if the virus is spreading at quicker rate, we obviously will have higher numbers. Whether it is because of man-to-man, it's a man-to-man transmission. It's an airborne disease. So more the interaction of people, more the movement of people, more people meeting with strangers whose history you don't know, whose travel history you don't know, and going to places in crowded places like malls or cafes or wherever, cinema halls, there are more chances of transmission. So we give a chance for the virus to propagate on one side. On second side, we have a variant of virus which is more rapidly spreading. And these 2 points together have made a situation very, very conducive for the virus to spread. And now, to the extent that why this high surge is there, we've got a third variant in it. We get a triple mutation. See, there are 5 antigens on the virus, out of which now 3 have mutated in one virus itself. So these are the reasons which I think. On the other hand, one more factor which I would like to highlight is that we were struggling with transmissions, say in a smaller scale where the economy was open. But now we have, on the other hand, people gathering in masses. We have thousands and lakhs of people gathering together, whether it is election rallies, whether it is festival celebration, whether it is some sort of religious celebration, whether it is whatever the reason is. If you see, November also, we had a small surge. We had a mini wave in November also, and a near similar situation, but a little smaller scale. of wave near Diwali. Before Diwali, again, the markets were open. People were going out shopping and doing all sorts of things for their Diwali festival celebrations. That that 2 months, October to November, we have got so many festivals across India. That time we had a small surge, but we were able to control it. We thought that we have controlled it, and December gave us less numbers. But this time, as I told you, all these 2-3 factors has made the condition out of control. It's like a tornado which has hit us. It has hit us, and we were absolutely unprepared for this tornado to come in. It's a storm, it's a tornado, whatever you name it, but it's a COVID tornado, and India has been caught unaware, totally unaware, and it has caught us by surprise. So small scale transmission was going on. We get a new variant, we get a mutation on that variant, and on the other hand, we get mass accumulation of patients at of people at various places due to ongoing so many things in India. So all these 2-3 factors have contributed in this surge, this spike, which is now out of control, and which probably has caused the collapse of our medical infrastructure.
Thank you, Dr. Dilip Singhvi, for giving your opening comments where we went wrong. And Dr. Singhvi has explained each and everything in detail. Now, before I will move to my next guest panelist, I have some small questions to you. First thing you mentioned about the compared with the Western country. Yes, Western country also went for the lockdown, but the financial conditions in those countries, where the 80% of the salary, even for the private organizations, I am talking of UK, was borne, even in Germany and other countries, were borne by the government. In those which were compulsory or forcibly shut down, because other industries who are working, those industry people were paying, but there are many industries or the shops which were not as non-essential shops or industries which were closed down. But in India, it has not happened. Although there were packages, but it could not reach to the industries or to those basic workers. That was my first. So my query to you is, the question is, like we have seen the surge in UK. And UK has gone down under the lockdown from December, complete lockdown, which they opened on the 12th of this month only. And they have controlled the UK variant, which they have published openly, that UK variant is there, which is 70% more infectious, as you have mentioned, for this variant. And they they gave the publicity to everyone, everywhere, and they controlled it. While in India, as you have mentioned that in November, early November, there were indications of the surge. No one has tried to do anything or take any action. What you say about that, Dr. Singhvi?
See, I was reading a report, Mr. Lal. As I said, we got indication in November that the variant has entered India, and after that, there was a little bit of research on it. Our medical fraternity started doing research on it. That what is the virulence, what is the spread, what are the change in side effects, or what are the change in symptomatology, whatever. All these were being studied. But the problem was, after say 3 or 4 weeks, as the curve started coming down, as the numbers started going down, as the deaths and mortality started going down, our, whether it is policymakers, whether it is our medical fraternity, whoever it is, they probably started getting a false confidence of getting it controlled. And they did not bother to continue that research. They thought, this doesn't matter. Nothing is going to happen. We have conquered the disease, or we have near conquered the disease. So that time, the research should have been continued. We should have been working on that variant more. We should have, right now, even if you ask me, we even don't know 100%, we are not sure that the vaccine will cover this variant. And I'm pretty sure this double mutation and triple mutation, it will not cover, because it is just coming. So you see, had that variant studied in a better way, we probably would have been in a better position to predict or at least anticipate, because see, coronavirus are since age is known to mutate. And the more we go after it, chase it and make a vaccine, the more it will mutate. You see, the best example I will give you is influenza virus. It mutates every season, every year. That's why we need to give the shot of influenza every year. Had it not mutated, there was no need to give it every year. Same is with coronavirus. It mutates and it will mutate. And believe me, it will not stop. So now we have to, if we want to control it, we have to think ahead of it. Like you said, UK took 97 days to come out of the lockdown. So had we had a little bit of foresight, insight into this variant, that was the first indication that the virus is changing, the scenario will change. And this, we have already reached to the third variant, and we never know what is going to come in the future. So we have to have this insight. As per what you said, the financial part, I do agree. See, if you see the size of India, probably you can put whole of Europe, half of Latin America, and whole of America together, and still the Indian population will be more than that. You can join all these three continents and still we are more. So for us, the task is 4 times of what West is doing. We have to think 4 times. We have to have insight more. And we have to take care of the population, that population which is at risk of having financial bankruptcy, or as you said, they are lack of jobs. So I'm talking about those people like who are daily wagers, who are migrants, migrant labor, which shifts from one state to, see, the moment a lockdown comes, what happens? The migrant labor moves from one place to another. That is the first thing they do. Now, any mass movement will spread the virus. You cannot stop it. If one train has, say, 5 or 10 people in it, and it's a jam-packed train from top to bottom, you see by the time it reaches its destination, ideally the whole train has to be quarantined, because you don't know how many have got infected. So our thinking and our spectrum should have been 4 times of the world.
Okay, Kritosh, my very straight thing to you is, it shows that our research scholars, all the doctors or virologists, either they are incompetent or lazy, or they were under pressure from the policymakers not to do the research further, because everyone was knowing this thing and it was publicized everywhere from the month of September or earlier, that second or third mutant is going to come. And when this is the situation, how come a research scholar or a virologist or a doctor, whosoever is involved in this, has, according to you, they have become overconfident?
Mr. Lal, I would probably not agree with the first word you used, incompetency. We are very competent. The whole world knows how Indian brain is and how competent we are. The second 2 words which you used could be a possible reason, which has given a sense, a false hope of confidence that we have conquered the disease. Probably what has happened, that when they thought that the numbers are coming down, we don't need to put our thrust on this. We need to just put our thrust on getting more down, the more
okay.
down.
Okay, okay. I take that word back, and I can say unprofessionalism instead of incompetency, unprofessionalism, because this is very common as far as political leaderships are concerned. They can give the false hope, but a professional will never give a false hope to anyone. Anyway, yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Dilip Singhvi, for giving.
1 minute. I can give you a quote of the father of virology in India. I don't know, Dr. Raman might be knowing, who is the ICMR ex-secretary, Dr. Vishwamohan. He was the one person who was responsible for microbiology and virology establishment of labs in 105 medical colleges in India. He was the one who got the grants, and we did the research and the establishment of microbiology and virology in all these medical colleges. He was the person behind it. But the problem is, see, medical line is a dynamic line. It's a continuum. You cannot put a full stop to it. We have to constantly research it, because the nature of the virus is such, the bacteria or virus or whatever organism we are dealing with, it is such that it mutates, it changes its shape, size, antigens, everything. So we cannot put a full stop. We have to work upon it. The government has to allocate funds for it. It is equally important to do a research, and it is equally important to contain the disease. So they go hand in hand. You cannot be complacent in one arm, which is what has happened. We were complacent in researching. We thought we'll just contain the disease. And now also the burning question remains again the same, which nobody is speaking of. I mean, at least across the debates which I am hearing and I've seen, nobody is talking about breaking this chain.
We will come to in the next segment for that. Dr. Dilip Singhvi, thank you very much for giving your very frank and expert opinions. Now I would like to go to my next panelist guest, and he is Dr. Suleiman Ladani. Dr. Suleiman Ladani is the consulting chest physician and head of the department Prince Ali Khan Hospital, Wokhard Hospital and Masina Hospital, Mumbai. He is a specialist for asthma, COPD, tuberculosis, and interstitial lung disease. He was the governing board member of Prince Ali Khan Hospital and director of Aga Khan Health Services India for 8 years. He was the chairman of Aga Khan Health Board India for 4 years. He was the secretary Maharashtra State Anti-Tuberculosis Association for 3 years. He has publications in reputed journals with experience in clinical research for 18 years. Welcome, Dr. Suleiman Ladhani, on our show. Dr. Suleiman Ladhani, you have heard what Dr. Dilip Singhvi has mentioned.
Right.
Now, my question to you is the same. Where we went wrong? Dr. Suleiman Ladhani, please.
First of all, thank you for having me here, and Dr. Singhvi for putting the right perspective. Some repetitions may be there, but I would like to put my perspective across as to what exactly went wrong. So first of all, as rightly said, in the beginning of the year, there were a lot of congratulatory messages that we have conquered the disease and flattened the curve. And in that sense, I think the first cause which led to this is complacency, and I would also put it as COVID fatigue. So while people were congratulating and we had that false sense of security, we should just say that we had good luck and virus was just biding time, mutating to start this tsunami all over again. And what happened during this period was that people let their guard down, and instead of having messages of still being vigilant, having the social distancing and following the protocols that are necessary to prevent the second wave, people were just moving around. And in that process, the COVID fatigue set in because of the lockdown. The economy was down. The low middle income people did not have much to do. And once the mental fatigue set in, people were just moving around thinking that now the virus is conquered and we have to do something about it. Otherwise, financially, they would also go bankrupt. So people started moving around. Economy opened up, restaurants, people started traveling to other places. And in that sense, the complacency and this COVID fatigue was the stepping stone where I think the seeds were sown for the second tsunami. And as Dr. Sanghvi rightly put in, the virus was biding time. The second and the most common cause is the mutation that has happened in the virus. The double and the triple mutation. The UK variant was very well known that it had caused problems in the UK, and by November we had some sense of idea that this could be present here and can cause this problem. But as rightly put in, we were still laid back, and this virus with the mutations has become really more infectious. Last year, if one family was infected, the other family members were not necessarily found to be infected. But here, if one person is infected, at least 10 others were also infected along with them. The other part is that we do not still have the details. The genomic studies are very poor, and we really don't know which mutant and what type of mutant is causing it, because an effective vaccination would only be the way forward of getting out of this. So this mutation is far more infectious, and it has led to a tsunami of cases. Apprehension about people to come forward, get themselves tested is also another problem, because people feel sitting at home for 14 days in this scenario is not an option. These are my personal opinion that I'm giving you. And they tend to move around. And this virus being infectious, they are spreading around to other people. And in that process, this has become far more worse. Even in spite of knowing that they are positive, we have seen people roaming around hospitals, not knowing, exposing themselves to other people. And that has really led to a large number of cases in this population. Uh, the other, I think, the other factor is that we have seen a number of high rises, at least in Mumbai, I can say that earlier it was the slum population which was found to be more infected with this virus. But this time, if you see, is the high rises and the more upper middle class people who have been infected. And with them, they have had tsunami of people. The entire buildings have been sealed because each building having a large number of cases, a sense of confidence, I don't know, I may put it across like that. And that has led to a spread, having large number of gatherings, marriage, where we have seen a large number of population coming together. In fact, I would give you an example of Nagpur and Ratnagiri, where I have seen a marriage of 200 people where the bride and the groom themselves were infected in that process. They infected the entire people who had participated in that marriage. So the entire uh, population of around 100 and 150. This led to a tsunami of cases in this area. So it's a bit of laid back attitude by the people. Sense of responsibility is not that, taking the disease more lightly, and the fatigue which has set in, which has led to the tsunami. The third cause, which I feel is very, very important, is the slow vaccine rollout. Now, as we all know, that the only way of this dark out of this dark tunnel is vaccination. And I feel that the rollout of this vaccination, at least in our country, has been very, very slow. With such a large population and the figures that you have mentioned, if you see by that, and if you go statistically, we'll have more than 600 to 700 days to at least vaccinate 70% of our population to get herd immunity. And at this pace, this could spell disaster. And India being a superpower where the vaccination is produced, I think the calculations went wrong, where there was shortage of vaccine, and being a country where the vaccine is produced and there being shortage is something I think was another factor which has made this tsunami problem. And my other theory, which I feel is very, very important at this point in time, is that this vaccination centers, I feel, have some way become a super spreader event, in the sense large number of people coming in for vaccination because of shortage, jostling over one another to ensure that they get the vaccine. And in that process, they are exposed because you have the hospital environment, and one person exposed exposes the other people. And we have people coming in after a week of vaccine being vaccinated as suffering from corona. So what this has done, this has given a bad name to the vaccine. It has brought in a vaccine hesitancy and a sense of feeling that the vaccine is something which is leading to coronavirus. So this is something which needs to be cleared, that the protection starts after the second dose of the vaccine, at least 15 days after that, when the actual protection starts. The first is just an immune stimulation, whereby your immunity is stimulated, but it is after the second dose and at least 2 weeks after that, that the actual protection starts. And as we all know, no vaccine is 100% protective. This may also lead to infection, but at least it saves you from going to the hospital and intensive care unit. And the main aim at this point in time is to control the spread and at least prevent transmission. So this also, I think, is one of the factors which has led to a surge in cases due to overcrowding of events and vaccination centers, giving a false sense of security and a feeling that they have overcome the disease by just taking one dose of the vaccine, and in the process exposing themselves to the other people. And the other factor, I think, last is a political miscalculation. As Dr. Singhvi also mentioned, we had large events, political rallies, something like a Kumbh Mela, where there were lots of people who were present. And this gathering of large number of people at various events or rallies is something which has led to a surge in large number of cases. So this is another factor which has led to a surge in these cases. Now coming to this, there is a knee-jerk reaction. Earlier there was a lockdown. Again, now we have a lockdown. And as rightly put, the migrants place, people who are present in various states, they start migrating. And in that process, they carry the disease along with them to the rural areas where the infrastructure is very, very bad. There is no proper care available, and they infect a large number of population. So if you see now, urban cities are somehow managing, and city like Mumbai has less number of cases, but overall Maharashtra, if you see, the surge is very, very high. So they are the smaller cities and these rural areas where the migrants are going back and giving a large number of cases which cannot be coped up by the health authorities, and that is causing a real surge in this COVID-19. So these are the few factors which I feel, in my experience, are something which has led to this tsunami of cases. And I think it's high time we need to take steps forward to get this under control.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suleiman Ladani, for giving your views. Dr. Suleiman Ladani has made a very, very important point about the vaccination center. The experience says that in USA, the vaccination centers are managed by the army there. The army is controlling the vaccination centers. No photographs are allowed inside the vaccination center. While what we are seeing in India, that whosoever is going to be vaccinated, he is taking the photograph, that is okay. But after removing his mask, and when you are taking the photograph, I think that is the most risky thing which has happened. And according to you, these centers can become the super spreader. While in USA, the army is controlling, there is a fixed quota that this many persons can come at one time with a prior appointment. Otherwise, you are not allowed to enter that vaccination center at all. So why such type of things were not implemented here in India? Whose fault is this, Dr. Ladhani?
See, I feel it's the organization, the hospital setup, and I think this was not, it is a centralized process. So I think the state governments were not given a very open hand in having the vaccine distribution and carrying out the vaccination, all dependent upon receiving the vaccine, and at that time having a plan, how vaccination should be done. And most important also is, how do you have the vaccination center organized, in the sense you have a separate entrance, separate exit, and in the process we need to see that there is no overlapping of people around, to ensure that there is not too much of exposure. And the other part is, if you see, they have to wait for observation for 30 minutes, which is necessary for reaction. But what has happened in that process, in that 30 minutes, you have canteen next door, people are having tea, coffees with their masks down, talking to each other, and it has become more like a social gathering. So I think this was not anticipated, the organizational aspect, and this should have been more thought about and made it in a way where the people take this more seriously and ensure that the vaccination process is smooth and they leave early as possible after vaccination. So I think the hospital authorities and the government had maybe needed this to be a more organized process to ensure that they've spent less time in that center.
But Dr. Suleiman, we remember in our childhood, there used to be a home-to-home vaccination of smallpox at that time,
right?
When we eradicated that disease. Can't we here? Okay, you are saying 30 minutes. Can't we have the home-to-home vaccination where the team will go there? There will be no cluster of people. There will be no gathering. They will reach to a home along with one medical emergency van, and there they will give the vaccine, and that person will enter after waiting for 30 minutes in their home only. And if they see there is an emergency, they can put inside that and give the same thing, instead of calling them to the hospital or to the vaccination center, where according to you it's going to become a, and now it is still a starting point. 14 crore is nothing in front of a population of 140 crores. So and every year, see, the difference here, like our earlier panelists mentioned about the influenza vaccine, the mutants one, every year one has to take. So it means every year we have to go for the same process. So why not have a dedicated vaccination center or a home-to-home vaccination? What do you say about that?
See, I agree in the sense that if you have a bedridden patient, senior citizens who really have a problem moving around, for them, I agree that there should be this process available. But for the entire population, I think it may be a challenge, because having so much resources available with such a large number of professionals who can travel around may be a challenge. So I think for senior citizens and people who are bedridden, who cannot walk, I agree that this should be the way forward. And I think even it's a question of the vaccination wastage and the usage, how it is consumed. That also I think is a part of this uh, debate or query, whether it will be utilized optimally, and there should be not a vaccine wastage which is seen. So I totally agree that we need to have vaccination available at each and every corner, whether it is a school. And I feel more than going home, the general practitioner or your family physician should be the right person who should be given the right to vaccinate, because they are the one whom you are in touch with. He can come home, give you the vaccination and observe you for 30 minutes, and any problem he can solve it right there. So I feel rather than having a team, giving the rights to your family physician or your GP or a general practitioner to vaccinate individuals will cover a large number of population, and it also gives a sense of security and safety to the patients, because they are being administered by someone whom they trust and whom they know. And this could really be a game changer and help us cover a large number of population.
When you yes, you are right, Dr. Ladani, and you have mentioned about the school. I still remember early 1960s, the schools. I was in a school, and we were giving a smallpox vaccination at the school, as well as they were visiting home also. So
Yes.
basically, they were covering everything. And I think we have so much volunteers and doctors, and you rightly said about the general practitioners. Those can also be. So thank you very much. One more last before I will move to my next guest is, you have mentioned about the marriages.
Yes.
Now, marriages, why the permissions were giving for 200 or 500 or even 50 people? After all, this virus, even if you give permission for 50, why not we make in India, till the time this virus is there, online registration of the marriage? You no need of going for a ceremony, only an online registration when from one house to other house, and then the marriage can be. And then once the virus is over, you celebrate by 200, call 2,000 or 20,000 people and celebrate the program. What you say about that, Dr. Ladani?
I totally agree, because I think this was one of the major factors which led a surge in cases. And I was surprised that even when this mini lockdown, as you may call it, was started, still marriages were permitted and there were permissions allowed for at least 25 to 50. But we know that it's never 25 to 50, it is more than 200. And as I gave you examples, we have cases in rural areas where, because of the large number of population and protocols not being followed, there has been a surge in the number of cases. So I totally agree that there should be a system where, if this can be postponed, the government should avoid permitting marriages and getting people together, get them registered, maybe with 2 or 5 people, get them married, and once the things are under control, they can have a celebration how they want. But any places where there is a gathering of people, or due to any reason, at this point of time, I think should be totally avoided by the government.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ladani, for giving your very, very frank views and expert views again. And I will say about the gathering, yes, you rightly said about the election. We have seen in 4 states and 1 union territory how much gathering was there, whether it was our honorable Prime Minister or the leader of opposition or the present chief ministers. They all were rallying without taking the although election commission was saying that it is all as per the protocol, but everybody knows that when 50,000 or lakh or 2 lakh people were present, how the protocol can be maintained.
Absolutely.
And we have seen the same thing at Kumbh Mela. We have also seen the holy celebration, which was promoted by the state government. That is also we have seen. So to blame if public at large, I think it is too high, because too much, because a person, as our earlier panelist says, that we have all cooperated with the government. Yes. So if the government is allowing us, then the person will definitely enjoy. But if the government says no Holi, no Kumbh, no election rally, nobody will go. After all, everybody loves their own family, themselves. Thank you very much, Dr. Ladani, for giving your very good views. Now I would like to go for my next guest, and he is Dr. Ramen Goel. Dr. Ramen Goel, MS/FRCS, is the Director of Center of Excellence in Bariatric and Metabolic Surgery, Wokhard Hospitals, Mumbai. Dr. Goel is the former President of Indian Association of Gastrointestinal Endosurgeons, IAGES. Dr. Goel is the Associate Editor of Journal of Minimal Access Surgery. Dr. Goel is a renowned bariatric surgeon based at Mumbai. He has published many research articles and book chapters. He has also helped formulate times. Welcome, Dr. Ramin Goel, on our show. Dr. Goel, you have heard what Dr. Dilip Singhvi and Dr. Suleiman Ladhani has mentioned, and they have given where we went wrong. Now, same question to you. COVID returns, where we went wrong. Before that, I will just mention, and our viewers might be remembering that Dr. Goel, in the month of May 2020, when he came for the first time on our show, he mentioned at that time, the virologist was there, one senior bureaucrat from the government of India was there, one vice chancellor was there. And at that time, he mentioned that this virus, if we have to contain, we have to see to it the proper isolation, contact, tracing, and to be done. Now we would like to know, Dr. Goel, the same thing is happening, and you came to our show several times, and you always insist that if we will not control, this become uncontrollable. I still remember you mentioned one time that the day will come that there will be no beds available. Although other panelists were not of your view, they were not accepting your views because they says, no, we have so many beds available in India, and there are very few cases. But at that time, you say the day will come when there will be no beds. Now things are the same. Now we would like to know, Dr. Goel, COVID returns, where we went wrong. Your views, Dr. Ramin Goel, please. Please unmute.
Okay, good morning, everybody. So glad that you remembered our last conversation or the first conversation in this program. In May 2020, I mentioned that if we don't control it, there'll be a tsunami of cases. And I also remember the senior bureaucrat who said, this is a very pessimistic view. I didn't know that the tsunami will take 1 year to come. And it's unfortunate that it has struck India. But the main thing is, this was expected. We were fortunate that this did not happen last time. And this has come to haunt us now. And it's not that just non-availability of bed is an issue. This is going to haunt us for decades. People who are losing their children who are 28, 35-year-old are going to suffer this loss for their entire life. And I think this is what each one of us who are in leadership position will feel haunted, that we did not act in time or we did not act responsibly. So I think this is an important issue that should have been taken head on right last year and should not have been managed so superficially. The second thing that also happened in your program, I remember, was that we discussed about herd immunity. And I mentioned that the only way herd immunity should be thought of is by vaccination. While a senior panelist who is an expert in public health on your show mentioned that herd immunity will come through disease in India, and those who are savable should be saved, and those who are senior citizen need not be saved because the younger generation will take India forward. Now, this concept of this country will belong to some people, will not belong to other people, is the root cause of the entire problem. You cannot say now the young generation is affected. And when the young generation is affected by the virus, who is to be saved? Who is to be sacrificed? So I think we can always enter into an argument on this. But scientifically speaking, worldwide, everybody knew that running a disease through a country to achieve herd immunity is the worst strategy. This will lead to mass deaths, mass grief, and the nation will suffer for generations because of this strategy. And we are also now facing the same situation where the whole world has practically segregated, practically stopped entry of Indians. Even Bangladesh, even Middle Eastern countries have stopped their communication. And I'm At the moment, they have only stopped entry of people. But what if the exports from our country get stopped by these countries? Because this was seen in early part of the COVID, that the exports which are coming from UK to USA, or they were coming from Italy to UK, were found, the food items were found to have virus in this. And they said, we don't want these imports to come from Italy. Now, what happens if the food products from India which go to Middle East get stopped? And the country will bear a huge economic cost. So ultimately, the health is the basis of economy. You cannot say that we are taking care of economy by compromising on the health of the citizen. And this is what I come to when I say there's been a misreading of situation. Misreading of situation is clearly visible that when we had a cricket match, I think the early indicators were the cricket match when there were more than 50,000 people allowed in a stadium to observe a match together. Now, where is the priority in the sense that we are running through a pandemic worldwide and we allow people to come together? Then opening of malls, theaters, spas, gyms, saying that we have instructed them to follow protocol is not enough. How many gyms, how many malls were booked, owners were booked, that they were not enforcing the social distancing? Now that never happened. Then comes election. Now all this has been discussed repeatedly, the public knows it, but the question is accountability. Now those who are responsible to conduct these elections, whether it's election commissioners, what were they doing? And then religious festivals like Holi, Kumbh Melas, and many others, Diwali and others, where people were allowed to gather together in lakhs. We remember distinctly that when in this mosque in Delhi, there were 2,500 people. The media went against that. It's a bomb that has been exploded. Now, what about every religious festival, even at homes? I'm not talking of Kumbh alone. I'm talking of even at homes in Holi, that we were 50 people playing Holi, and we are like super spreader events. So I think this attitude to achieve life as usual early on in the country was the reason of major surge that we are seeing now. Now, this is not because of failure of one person or one party or one government. This is across the board. And vaccination, slow vaccination. We had vaccines ready somewhere in about October or November. The first time the applications were made for approval. The approvals came late. Then the whole country knew that vaccination is the way. Why we were not ready for, as Dr. Ladhani was saying, that even now we are not ready. These vaccination centers have themselves become spreading places. Why we were not ready in October with a plan that whenever vaccine will be approved, this is the way we are going to implement it. And the moment application came, within 24 hours or within 48 hours, approval could have been given. What was given after 2 months or after 15 days, whatever time it took. Then delaying international vaccine approval. They were. I don't want to use the name, but there was a company which applied for vaccine approval in India, which was already approved by FDA. Now various ways, various media was used to defame the company's application, to delay its approval or to refuse it, because we wanted our indigenous production to be supported, so that we are a self-sufficient nation. But that led to a delay. Every delay of each delay of 1 day of vaccination has probably led to death of a few thousand people, if you look prospectively from that day. And who is responsible for all this? So I think then it was known that the second or third or fourth wave will come. Did we build up our health infrastructure in the time when we were gloating about achieving control to prepare for a second wave? There was none. And this is not something that falls only at the political leadership. It is basically the professional leadership who advise the governments or advise the political leaders. They were the ones who should have insisted that we need to be prepared because the second wave is coming. And if they were not being heard, they should have moved on and let more effective people take the responsibility of advising the political leadership. But they stuck to their posts, and they are the ones who failed the nation. Then there is another thing that I mentioned in one of your programs, were that the entire strategy is being decided by 2 or 3 or 4 persons centrally. The centralization is the problem. Now, lessons have been learned in patient management in Maharashtra, lessons have been learned in patient management in Uttarakhand and in different parts of the country. Now, typically, the healthcare improves by, by exchange of ideas, by thought process being discussed. So let's say in Maharashtra, in very early, it was known that remdesivir shortens hospital stay. But in other parts of the country, this was not even used, not even discussed with the patients, or this option was not given when remdesivir was available in adequate quantity. In Maharashtra, 6-minute walk test and saturation levels were a way to determine who should get the steroids and who should not get the steroids. But the 6-minute walk test, because I talked to doctors from different parts, was not even known in places in Uttar Pradesh and in Uttarakhand and many other parts of the country. Why this lack of communication? Because the centralization was encouraged, and the exchange of ideas was discouraged. Saying that only 3 people in the country know everything about COVID care, and whatever they come and tell us on the TV is the right way of managing the patient, is not the right way of scientific development. Probably if this exchange of ideas was given, many more lives would have been saved in hospitals in Delhi, in various states which are run by different political parties. So I think similarly, like blood thinners, what tests are required and who should be given blood thinners during hospital stay and after discharge. I tell you, I know of people who are senior anesthetists who lost their lives in West Bengal uh, because they had COVID, they were discharged, but they were never put on blood thinners. Now they had a heart attack, and all that is shown that they had a heart attack or they had a brain stroke, and very easily said that this is a known complication of COVID. But if it is a known complication, it's also a preventable complication. So I think there had been failure at or a misreading of situation at various levels. Then allowing export sale of vaccines. I completely agree that our country is a big country. We should have humanitarian approach. So we distributed about 1 million or whatever number of dosage to the neighboring countries who could not.
More than 4 crores. So rather 6
No,
crores.
what
Sorry,
I'm saying
6
is,
crores.
so free distribution is one part, but the company was allowed to sell about 4 to 5 crore of dosage to various countries. So the doses that were given to Brazil was not free, they were paid. So the major share of the vaccines that was, so being humanitarian, being large-hearted is absolutely required. But that was only about 1 crore. Other 4 to 5 crores were paid, were sold, and similarly, oxygen was sold, remdesivir was sold. These were like precious national resource. No country, as we are facing it now, the USA says that we will have it for ourselves first, our citizen first. No country allows a precious national resource to be sold outside. So I think having a balance of humanitarian approach and avoiding commercial gains at this time is so important. Then another factor which is hardly discussed is and delay in genome sequence reporting. So there have been reports, and again this was all coming through media, that in February from Vidarbha, Maharashtra, where the double mutant was earlier noticed, the genome sequencing reports were sent to, and these labs are in Maharashtra only, but the reports were never handed back over for next 1.5 to 2 months. A crucial delay, a report which should have been which should have been available on same day or within 2 or 3 days, was held back for almost 2 months. And by the time the virus was rampantly, if it was available very early, serious lockdown in those areas, serious distancing could have avoided spread of virus. So I think there are multiple issues. You cannot pinpoint one thing. As you mentioned, Mr. Goel, about payment to poor people. Now, people have memories. Nobody can say that people will forget. So when poor people were not supported in last lockdown, they remember it this time when even Janta curfew or whatever you call it, ultimately it's lockdown. When these are being implemented in different parts by different states, the poorer people realize that they will not have the social security that is required to survive in big cities, and they've already started migrating. If we had supported them last time financially, they would not have migrated this time. So I think there are multiple issues, and each one of us, I have also been in leadership position of my association. All of us who are in leadership position are living in denial, and that is what, and blaming people. And what I see is everybody starts saying, if people start behaving, following appropriate behavior, I am ready to follow. Everybody followed what happened during lockdown. But those who are role models like us or the leaders or professionals, if they are not displaying it themselves, how do you expect a lay person to do it? So if you say, when I was listening to this discussion on marriages, if in a rally held by anybody, whether people in power or in opposition or chief minister, if in a rally 2 lakh people can come together or 5 lakh can come together, why I am not allowed to have 500 people in the marriage of my child? No, this is the way people think. If they say that I am not going to hold any rally, let the election be there, it will be only virtual rally, people will also go for virtual marriages. So I think there are their role model concept, and somewhere that role model concept was diluted because of various personal reasons. So I think, if you want me to ask, I think the institutions and experts have failed the public. The institutions and experts who advise political leadership have failed the political leadership, because they did not tell them, warn them enough or seriously enough that you should not be doing this, and this is the way things should be taken. And then we knew that, this data came very, so transparency is so much required. Transparency is not there. Now, this was realized very recently, that India is only producing about 22 lakh vaccines a day, while we were vaccinating at the pace of 33 to 40 lakh a day. So vaccine shortage is bound to happen. Now, India applied to you mentioned about today's IPR day and the patents. India went into the IPR, whatever the organization, saying that during the time of pandemic, this IPR quota should be abolished, and India should be allowed, and poorer countries should be allowed to produce mass. What about mass vaccination production by Serum Institute? They were looking for financial support early on. I remember seeing his interviews. Why we are not supported, that 20 lakh production a day is not enough. Why we should be producing 100 lakh vaccines a day, and whatever money is required should have been invested and recovered later. That's an investment in the future of our country, in the economy of our country. So I think, when you say what went wrong, we can go on the whole day discussing this, but there is always, we should be looking forward and seeing what is the situation now and what can be done further. So thanks for organizing this, but I believe we are too far off now, in a situation where we find it very difficult to even think of how it can be controlled now. Even the experts worldwide are saying that the ship has sailed too far, and it's almost impossible to turn it around.
Thank you very much, Dr. Goel, for giving your views. And yes, I still remember you have mentioned all these things in your earlier media participation in our media conference. But at that time, people were not taking it seriously because we have a tendency of sab chalta hai thing, which we thought that even in the health sector also, it is going to happen in the COVID time, sab chalta hai. Now the things have passed. We will see when the next mutant will come. We have we conquered the first pandemic. We will conquer the another one. We have such type of thing. But one point which, one or two points which I would like to clarify from you. You have mentioned about the food items. You said that the food items from Italy to UK and other places were banned at one time because they found that some infection were there. Is there any scientific proof of that, or is type of things that the food items can also carry the infection?
So, this is a very dynamic situation. This is what was reported somewhere in May or June of 2020. We remember, now we see that CDC has come with this, that surface transmission is no more valid. But this is not something in absolute term that I say that the food transmission related infection carriage will not happen, and vice versa. So I think we need to accept this, but at that moment or now, the focus in our country is so much on economy that unless government realizes that it is going to hurt them economically, they don't give enough serious, they don't attach enough seriousness to the health of the people. So I think this is what is very important to realize, that health is the most important thing. Wealth can come later. You remember those our childhood days. If you lose your character, if you lose your health, and if you lose your wealth, what is most important? Somehow in this discussion on COVID, we have missed out on that wealth is the last thing that should be considered. Character, health, and then last should be wealth.
Okay. Now, one more point which we have mentioned about the remdesivir. Now, so much controversy is going on. Even the other day, our Honorable Prime Minister had a talk with one of the senior Dr. Shashank Joshi of Mumbai in his Man Ki Baat. And there also it was mentioned. Now, what is the clear position? Some doctor says it's not required. Some says, no, it will shorten the 3 to 4 days stay in the hospital. I don't know. What is the clarity? Can you just give something? Because you have mentioned this particular thing.
So, I also had COVID, as many as I believe other panelists here. So, remdesivir, the study says, does not reduce the number of deaths. Okay, it does not improve the survival. But there are personal experiences of hospitals and doctors, as Dr. Ladhani is managing COVID patients in Mumbai, where they say if remdesivir is given in first 3 to 5 days, and I don't want to create this mass hysteria to acquire remdesivir across the country. So it reduces the hospital stay, it shortens the hospital stay. So I think there are reasons for saying that remdesivir panic should not happen, because it's a shortage and people who really need it should be prioritized. But at the end, the transparency and scientific norm should override this thing of hiding things and to remain positive all the time. If we were talking openly about, as you mentioned, openly, UK mentioned openly that we have a double mutant. UK was isolated. Many countries, most of the countries stopped their flights to UK. Almost 40 countries stopped their flights to UK. But still, they did not hide the data, and they openly talked about it, and they aggressively controlled the disease. By saying something that this drug or this problem doesn't exist, or this drug is not useful for this medicine, we are doing probably more disservice than really giving a benefit to people.
Okay, thank you. One last before you will go. Today, the condition in India is that the district collector or the police commissioner or the administrations, they are controlling the hospitals. They are controlling the number of beds, to whom the bed should be given, whom to the oxygen to be given. Don't you think this is the work of the doctors, medical fraternity? You know better. The doctors knows this patient requires bed, this require oxygen, this require this medicine, or the administration require all these things?
So, this happened very early on. The people in the executive power took the responsibility to manage this disease themselves. No, this is probably a wrong approach, because the government should be the facilitator. You mentioned something about army managing the vaccination. The entire supply line in UK is managed by army. Whether the medicine availability, the drug availability is, because they have the best infrastructure. Actually, I mentioned it in one of your programs last year. Where is our army for last 1 year? Why they were kept in reserve when the whole nation was in trouble? No, they have the best networking, best communication systems. They are the most disciplined of the lot in the country, and they are available across the country. If they had been handed over the distribution of vaccine or distribution of drugs to regulate it, they should remain behind the scene. Let the doctors and hospital manage the situation on ground, as you are rightly mentioning. The doctor should be deciding who should get a priority. I agree, there'll be some misuse, but there is misuse even when the administration is managing the situation. So if I'm managing, I'm in a hospital, or Dr. Ladhani is in a hospital triaging patients, he might get one or two patients known to him in the hospital who probably did not deserve it. But the same thing also applies when administration runs it. So maybe the district magistrate, as you mentioned, or a police inspector can get his relative inside who did not deserve it. So that kind of 5 or 10% of misuse, or 1% of misuse, cannot be the reason to take away the professional power of a doctor in deciding who deserves the treatment.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Goel, for giving your views. I'm sure today's program is quite enlightening for all our viewers. Now I would like to go to Dr. Dilip Singhvi. Dr. Singhvi, now tell us the ground situation. Now, what is the situation at your hospital? After all, you are managing a COVID hospital. You are head of the Apollo Hospital at Muscat. What is the situation? And you are getting all the feedbacks around from the India also and around the world. Now, what is the position at the hospital which you are managing?
See, as our situation is also the same what is there in India, although we have less volume because the population is less. But more or less the scenario is same. We are also overwhelmed with patients. Our hospitals are also all running full, although not that bad as what is there in India because of the sheer size of population. See, the biggest problem in India, what I see, is the population. The more people to be managed, the bigger the problem. We have lesser people to manage, we have a lesser problem, but of course problem exists. So we also have the same turnover, volume over. We discharge one patient, we get 3 queries for admission. The same thing is happening here also. But here what we do is, as Dr. Raman rightly mentioned, the medical decision should stay with the doctor. All other non-medical decisions can be taken by the managers or whoever is managing the show, whether it is a logistic problem, operational problem, finance problem, whatever is, other people take care. As far as the medical decision is concerned, it is the doctor, the person who's managing and treating the patients. He is the one who decides which patient goes in, which patient goes with a prescription home, which patient needs to go into ICU straight away. So all this is decided by our medical team, of which I am a part. So now it's my call day. I'm on call actually. I'm sitting with both the phones together besides me. So if I'm on call, all the medical queries, all these patients, whoever comes, whether from whichever part of the country, will come to me if it is for a query, what to do with this patient and how to manage this patient. So all my junior team will ask me. So the medical decision should stay with the doctors in whichever part of the world we are treating. Because once that goes out of hand, you cannot control. You can just, then we are just facilitators like government. We are not the people who are managing. An undeserved patient goes in and a deserved patient stays out. Okay. Just because we have a pressure from somewhere. Okay. That should not happen. That should not happen, first of all. We see across the world, all doctors will always work in the best interest of the patient. Whoever is deserving, whatever is deserving for him, we never let it go. If we find that this patient needs an admission, he should get an admission. If we find that this patient can be managed on an OPD basis or can be managed at home, I'm doing teleconsultation not only for patients here, I'm actually doing teleconsultation for probably n number of cities in India. Wherever my friends, my relatives, my associates, even I don't know them, friends to friends, I've never known them, but they somehow get my reference from somewhere and they call me, they send me a message, can I consult you, can I call you? I said, okay, fine, as long as I'm able to help a patient, I'm always willing. I have treated patients, I have given them advices what to do at home if you're not finding a bed. Just now, as you quoted, I just got a call in morning from Delhi from one of my schoolmates. She lost her auntie, and now she's calling me that my dear friend, day 8, is struggling to find a bed in Delhi. What should I do? And the same advice I've given her: start this treatment, keep hunting a bed until you get. Till that time, consult, keep in touch with me, and I will guide you what to do at home.
Okay.
Get a home facility, get a nurse, get a compounder. There are so many people who are giving facility at home. So there are ways of managing things, but the same situation is there. Ground level situation is same. We have huge numbers. We have a huge number of patients dying. We have our all ICUs are full. Most of the hospitals are full with the beds, whether it is ICU beds or it's a normal bed. In the same situation like in India, but yes, we are not short of oxygen right now. We are not short of drugs right now because we have ample.
Can I ask you, Dr. Singhvi, how many people have died till now in Muscat?
The figure is close to 2,000, 1900 and something. Like this weekend, last weekend, we had probably, it's an accumulated figure of 3 days, 35 deaths, and around 3,500 was the number over the weekend, which comes on Sunday, because Sunday is a working day for us.
Okay.
So after the weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday comes accumulated.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we are now around close to 2,000 deaths. And
Okay.
the number is around 2 lakhs. We have somewhere around between 1 lakh, 1.5 lakhs to 2 lakhs, the total number of people who are infected.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yes,
thank
you. Yes, thank you, Dr. Dilip Singhvi, for giving your views. Now, my question goes to Dr. Suleiman Ladani. How you are managing the patients in the hospitals, because you are looking 3 hospitals and all the premier hospitals in Mumbai. Dr. Suleiman Ladani, please.
See, as rightly said, we are in a midst of thing where, I feel helpless sometimes, because sometimes you cannot do justice to everybody. We are trying to help out, reach out, facilitate beds, give management, but the situation is such that, reaching out to everybody is becoming very, very difficult. Somehow we are asking the people not to panic, because now what is happening with small symptoms, mild symptoms, people are looking for beds. People with upper middle class and doing well, they just want to get admitted just for the sake, as a process, just to ensure that there is everything is going right. So the beds are occupied by people who maybe not deserve it, and in that process the deserving person stays out. So we try to educate is that please do not panic. Just getting fever and cough is not a criteria for admissions. We have to have certain criteria based on which we decide whether admissions are necessary. And the most common where people don't have to go out is a 6-minute walk test, which tells you whether the person will require admission or not, and whether that's a red flag sign to decide that yes, things may get worse and this is the time we should look forward and get admissions. Just getting a small amount of fever or episode of cough, cold is not a criteria for getting admitted. But if your age is more, and if there are certain high risk factors, with your CT scan being the option of assessing whether there is the pneumonia is severe or not. But one step prior to that, it's a very simple step. Just monitor your oxygen and do a 6-minute walk test. These two are good criteria as red flags to decide that person needs to get admitted or seek further help.
Dr. Ladani, can you just explain to our viewers what is the 6-minute walk, which Dr. Goel also mentioned? What is the 6-minute walk test?
As Dr. Goel rightly said, it's very underutilized and people are not very aware about it or not using it. I don't know what word to use, but I would say in today's time, This is the best way of deciding whether a person needs to be hospitalized or seek proper medical care. So what we do is we have a pulse oximeter at home where we ask people to check oxygen regularly, and we make them we measure their oximeter at rest, the oxygen level, their blood pressure and their pulse. We make them walk around for 6 minutes. Ideally, if it is a young, healthy individual. If not and cannot, then 3 minutes also suffices. And after that, we try to see the oxygen again and the blood pressure. If the oxygen levels falls below 94, or there is a drop of 3% of oxygen in a high risk individual, then it is a red flag sign that the lungs are involved and this person may require further medical care, or complications may occur. It's not that it will, it may. So it is a sign that you need to get your scan done. And if it's a high risk case, then definitely that person will become the right person for admission.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Suleiman Ladani, for giving this 6-minute walk test, and it is going to be beneficial because this is something which if anyone can check at home, then only he or she can decide whether go to the hospital or not. Now, I would like to go to Dr. Raman Goel. Dr. Raman Goel, you being a surgeon, right now, what is the condition of the surgery? Because you being the former president of Indian Association of Gastroenterologists Endosurgeons across the India, you have more than 8,000 surgeons there. So what is the condition of the surgeries? Are they taking place or not in this COVID time?
So what has happened is that very early on, because Maharashtra got affected early, there has been sort of a rationing of surgeries, that people started saying that let's not do the planned surgeries. And then about 2 weeks back, because the Maharashtra started realizing the shortage of oxygen, the task force, and Maharashtra is blessed because their leadership is supported by very good experts who are part of the task force. They recommended that routine surgery should be stopped. So about 2 weeks back, surgeries stopped in Maharashtra, and they have now stopped in practically most of the states, Gujarat, Delhi, West Bengal, I'm aware. And this is primarily true for two reasons. One is that oxygen should be saved for COVID patients. And another problem that we faced before the rule came of stopping it, that patients who are coming for routine surgery in Mumbai, 50% of them were turning out positive, even though they had no symptoms. So they were coming for a surgery, we are getting a routine RT-PCR done, and they were turning out to be asymptomatic positive. So I think surgeries are a low priority. At the moment, only cancer surgeries and emergency surgeries are allowed. The rest of the surgeries have been stopped.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Goel. Now, one minute only to each of you, starting from Dr. Dilip Singhvi. What can be done now? 1 minute, please.
Going forward, yes, we cannot leave the situation like this. We have to control it. And as I said in the first part, that the most important thing to done, apart from what Dr. Goel and everybody else and our other panelists has said, that vaccination, rollout of vaccination should be done more rapidly, control of centers. But from my point of view, we need to break this chain.
Okay. So, yes. You want me?
I would just add one more point. Now is the time to centralize the whole effort. See, this cannot be done on state level individually. See, as Dr. Raman said, Maharashtra is now supposedly doing good and the numbers are coming down, but the other state is not doing. And you cannot stop people from traveling. It is their right. They will travel as soon as you open the lockdown. You can't stop, whatever the reason is. So one isolated state cannot remain isolated. I would, in my opinion, it should now be taken by center. It should be a centralized approach, uniform pan-India regulation.
Okay.
They can put it for 3 or 4 weeks, like what UK did.
Okay. So you mean to say the lockdown pan-India for
Yes.
3-4? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
It cannot be a piecemeal. It cannot be a piecemeal lockdown.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr.
Because India is a
yeah, we got your point, the paucity of time. So I have to move to the next panelist, Dr. Suleiman Ladani. 1 minute only. What can be done now?
Vaccination, vaccination, vaccination. That is the only way out of this dark tunnel. And that is the only way we can save our doctors and our paramedical persons from getting bogged down and totally frustrated. And that is the only way out of the tunnel, because the vaccine may not give you 100% protection, but 100% it will prevent you from landing up in a hospital and ICU, and it will relieve the health infrastructure from falling apart. And in future also, the health infrastructure need to be strengthened, like with Dr. Goel rightly said, exchange of ideas. And most importantly, let's anticipate what next, because without that, this is going to be another disaster we are looking at in the future. So let's have a long-term vision rather than just going for short-term care.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ladani. Now, Dr. Raman Goel, 1 minute to you. What can be done now?
So I think the government should take the role of a facilitator rather than a manager. They should make the oxygen and drugs, regulate them more carefully, make sure they are freely available. I am told that there are ambulances where they cannot get even an oxygen cylinder without signatures of the district magistrates or the. Now that has to be stopped. You have to trust your people. Let them. So facilitators' role should be there. Make everything available and prepare for third wave. I agree with what Dr. Singhvi says, that we should go for lockdown. But what after lockdown? The moment you will open up, you will have a third wave. Now is the time to start preparing infrastructure for third wave. Managing second wave is obviously a priority that should be separately done, but we should look forward.
Okay, thank you very much. So today you have heard and viewed what the medical experts has said about where we have gone wrong. And this is the position of the true India today, that we are facing so much problem because of many reasons which are already been discussed today. I will not be able to repeat it again because it's a vast topic. As our panelist says that it will take full day. Yes, it can take full day. And there are so many questions, unanswered questions. And many of our viewers have asked me to ask many questions, but I cannot ask all those questions because the time. But one thing is very clear. Please be ready for the third wave. Don't be panicky. Control yourself. Okay, if you feel that our role models are not showing what they were supposed to do, you do yourself, become your own self a role model, so that at least you can save yourself, save your own near and dears. So thank you very much. And today's program, which has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon se Samvad Sarokar News, as well as was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to bring to you everyday new topic. And our tomorrow's topic, media conference with Lal Goel. The topic is COVID returns, public health emergency. As one of the panelists today mentioned about that it should be a control, the army should be called and whatnot. So now tomorrow the topic is COVID returns, public health emergency. And the panelists are Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS, one-man expert commission on labor, Government of India, Lieutenant General V.K. Chaturvedi, retired PVSM, AVSM, SM, and Professor Dr. M. Abdul Salam, former Vice Chancellor, University of Calicut. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Dr. Dilip Sanghvi. Thank you very much, Dr. Suleiman Ladani. And thank you very much, Dr. Raman Goel, for joining and giving your very, very valuable expert advice and comments. I am sure our viewers are very much enlightened today. Thank you, all the viewers, for watching our show. Thank you.